Support comes from the Icarus Films release Early Short Films of the French New Wave, a box set of 19 short films that represent the dawn of the French New Wave as a group of talented young filmmakers, including Godard, Truffaut, Agnes Varda, and more, presented a radically new vision of French cinema. These shorts are not just stepping stones on the way to the famed New Wave features, but classics that stand on their own, the first forays of a movement that would revolutionize the world of French film and influence cinema around the world for decades to come. The New Yorker's Richard Brody calls this collection a revelation. Order now at IcarusFilms.com.
Chiefly, I want to act because it's a healthy way for me to live. It's a good way for me to be a dad. It's a good way for me to be a neighbor, a son, because it encourages me to be present. Like in my life, carrying those same principles, I'm working moment to moment in a conversation with someone. I feel more true and more pure that way. I'm closer to God in this way.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Al Warren is an actor. He sat down with me in cyberspace to talk about the work. I honestly don't know the answer to this question, and I know this might change every day. But are you an actor who has decided to make films, or a filmmaker who acts?
I'm an actor first and foremost, and I always have been. And when I was younger, you know, I was an entertainer. I was a performer as a child. You know, it's funny. I was thinking about this, like the church. Growing up, I grew up very present in the church in Mississippi, and the church kind of takes on different social roles for, you know, a family that goes there often. Right. So it's like a social club. It's like our local theater as well. Right. You know, the church that I grew up in, my mother was a soloist. My father is a filmmaker, so he was somehow going to be involved in the theatrical projects. My grandparents were in the choir. Like, I grew up in an environment where we're going to rehearsals. And, you know, when I was like, I think my first theatrical performance, I was probably like 4 or 5. My dad played Abraham and I played Isaac. And he's like taking me down the aisle of the church up to the altar to kill me, you know, and then God stops his hand when he's about to stab my ass. And I just love, and I remember one time my dad was the devil for like some sort of fucking play, and he painted himself red, and it was wild as shit, man. So before I ever fell in love with the idea that I would be like an actor's director, I was an actor. And I mean, to fast forward into my 30s, you know, all of my 20s, I did not act. I did it as a favor for a few friends who were making things, but I really was championing this idea that I'm going to will myself to be like a Cassavetes type actor's director. Maybe stylistically we're different, but like I love that the main thing that we're doing and exploring here as this film crew is not the fucking kick light on your hair or this new camera move. It's this atmosphere that we're creating for this actor that I've chosen and I've been working with, and they're going to bring themselves to this day, and we're going to create an atmosphere for them to be relaxed in and to do good work in. And when I was 15, I signed to a talent agent who came down to Mississippi and did like a cattle call with our local talent agency.
Wow.
And I did like monologues and shit that I had been doing for speech and debate and theater at school. And this woman represented Mandy Moore and she was on Will Smith's team at the time, and kind of like took my family out to dinner and was like, you know, Al, you need to kind of be preparing your friends that they're not going to see you much more. You're going to be in Hollywood. So I go back to school as a sophomore, you know, and I'm like, guys, like, it's been real. It's been fucking real. You know, if you guys are ever out in Hollywood, like, look me up, man. And so for the next few years, I was like doing taped auditions. This was well before like self-tapes. We were doing tapes and mailing them in. And then when I would have callbacks in like New Orleans and Memphis, I'm from Jackson, Mississippi, which is kind of in the middle of those two places. And I never got anything. I think the closest thing that I got, I was 18 and I had like 4 callbacks for Walk the Line to play Johnny Cash's drummer in one of the bands. I think that there were like 2 drummers in the movie, and it was between me and 2 other guys. I remember it came down to that, and they told me that they didn't pick me because of my age. I looked too young. And I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I was playing in bands legitimately as a drummer at the time. And I was just like, you know what? Fuck this. Like, I don't want to spend a life chasing these bit parts. I hadn't learned a craft yet, you know, and I really wanted that, but I didn't know that that's what I wanted. So I went headfirst into music for a few years. My band was signed when we were freshmen in college. We dropped out of school and we toured for 4 years and put some records out. Wow. And it was there on the road that I read Cassavetes on Cassavetes and started to see how I could.
Okay, wait though. Why did you pick up that book? If you're on the road, you know, and you kind of put that life behind you and you're a musician now, why did you pick up Cassavetes on Cassavetes?
My dad's a filmmaker. I grew up in the edit bay. I grew up on sets. I grew up with a house full of gear, you know, and my dad's very different than me. He was always coming at it from a very he's a cinematographer, right? So gear and the lighting and all of that is really important to him. It never was to me, but the language of film was always in my house and in my dad and my relationship. And I think like when I graduated high school, I was really into Wes Anderson already. And then like Spike Jonze, Michel Gondry. And I think from studying like what those guys were into, I started to hear about Godard and Truffaut and Cassavetes, and started to really like be interested as a musician, not even as a film guy. Like I just thought like, this is cool shit. And as an escape from kind of the music-centric world that I was in, I would get these books. I would start to study them in the bus or in the van, whatever we were traveling in at the time, as kind of an escape from whatever was happening in the band, you know.
And what was it about Cassavetes on Cassavetes, that book?
Well, it's the energy, because the films themselves can be quite challenging, and there's different seasons of my life where I really crave that, and others where I don't want to watch a Cassavetes film. But you know, but it's similar to like Kobe Bryant for me. There's like a willpower. There's a
that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
There's something burning inside of him that's ancient. That's coming out in this confidence that is unnecessarily present in Cassavetes and in Kobe Bryant and in anyone who forces themselves into a discipline that's going to keep them in the pocket all the time, for better or worse.
Right.
Like I love that shit. You know, I love a craftsman, whatever it is. I have no interest whatsoever in like fucking construction work, or my brother is in med school, in surgery. I have no care. I will never do surgery on you, Peter.
All right.
Never.
I appreciate
that. But I
that.
love the idea that Eric is studying this day in, day out.
Right.
This is an obsession for him, and he's going to become a master at this craft over the next whatever years, 50 years. Right. That to me is like,
yeah. In the same way you probably appreciate a great chef. You go in, but you don't want to go in the kitchen.
Yeah, I'll eat the food, but I'm not trying to cook this. Yeah, right, absolutely. Right. It's the same thing. But I'm inspired by that. I'm turned on by that energy, no matter what the person is doing. If they're obsessive in a healthy way that's organically like bringing them nutrition in their lives and feeding the people around them, I'm into that.
But when I'm hearing this story, I'm just hearing like you were going to get back to it eventually. You know what I mean? Like that's the way I want to to believe the story. Like you're meant for this, and it would have found you again. But how did that happen?
Well, first of all, I think that like music never has left. Like I really love music more than anything. And I think that the reason I love film and acting and editing and directing have to do with musical concepts. Like this
Interesting.
idea of rhythm and melody and a kind of otherworldly feeling, you know. The pursuit of film and acting, it built off of that, and it was never a departure from that
Interesting.
obsession with
Yeah.
music. I'm not playing in bands now. I mean, I'm very involved in sound design, and you know, I'm still very much a music consumer and fan, and a supporter of various types of labels and artists that I really love, and I forever will be that. But they're very ingrained for me, you know.
Yeah.
I just really wanted to not just be a drummer. I'm a drummer. I don't write songs in the same way that like a singer-songwriter guitar player does. And but I have that in me. Like I want to write. I want to be an author in certain ways. So that's why I started writing screenplays, you know. And I still feel like a novice. This has been started writing screenplays maybe in my early 20s, and so 15, 16 years ago, you know. And I still feel like every time I'm going to write, it's like I'm learning it for the first time.
Yep.
You know.
Yep. I just felt that way with this script I just wrote. There's like an atrophy every time. If you unless you're in a discipline where you're doing it every day. Mm-hmm. Even when you're not, like, that's what we really should be doing. We should be having a writing discipline. I don't know if you have anything like that, but I'm tempted to keep that going so that I don't have that atrophy of the muscles.
Yeah, but you know what? I feel like you're always going to come to that part of the process, no matter if you write every day, all day. Like
right.
You will always be faced with that part of the process where you read that first draft and it is shit.
Right.
What you can start to do, I think, over time when you're practicing your writing practice every day is like you stop looking at that as something to overcome, and you start to look at that as a part of the process. Like, this is just where the marble is now. Yeah. I know that the sculpture that we're going to cut out all this other shit and rearrange things, it's not there yet, but it's somewhere in this block of marble.
Yes.
It's the same thing with editing, I feel like.
Yes.
You know, they always say your best film ever is when you watch back dailies, and the worst film ever is your first cut of the film. And that is so true, right?
Yeah.
It's really true.
Yeah.
But if you know that going in, then hopefully it limits the amount that it can fuck with you. Yeah. Because now you know that this is just that we're at just like step one of baking the cake.
That's right.
And it's not going to taste like it does at step 8 after it comes out of the oven.
That's right. That's right. And where did you get the idea that you wanted to create an atmosphere on your sets that are the best environments for actors? You know what I mean? It can't just be that you read Cassavetes and said, I'm gonna make actor-centric films like this.
I think it's just natural for me, but an actor's job is to be a doer and to create, you know, a rhythm. And it feels so different than the practitioners that we work with as directors. So a cinematographer or a gaffer or a producer. It's like a game of Monopoly when you're making a film. It takes time. It takes a long time. But a performance from an actor, a moment from an actor, I should say, can feel like a song at a show that really just like you lost yourself for 3 minutes.
Yes.
I'm looking for that always. I love that. And I don't think that it was a learned thing. I feel like I saw an example of what that could kind of look like for me, and I ran to that direction. You know, I don't know. I really also just enjoy. Like, I remember being in the band, and we would play. You know, we were on tour all the time, and I remember going to New York, and we played a show, and we went to this party after. And I'm talking to people, and I meet a girl and I say like, what do you do? And she's like, I'm an actor. That's it. And I remember thinking like, fuck, like something about that statement, just declarative. I don't even know if she's good. I don't know what she's done, what she's going to do. But that felt like a breakthrough moment for me. I'm from
Interesting.
Mississippi. Like there's filmmakers, a couple, but most people are in law or medicine or teaching or whatever. Like you don't meet people that are just definitively, I'm an actor.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, man, there was a spark in me anytime I was around people like that. I feel like that to this day. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like no matter if the person is, a big time celebrity type actor or some novice kid that's like 20, and asking me questions about my movie or something, like I like that energy that those people are giving me. And I want to be around that.
That's beautiful, man. I feel that same way. It almost makes me emotional hearing that.
Yeah.
Because I know what you mean. And it's something about like if you're devoting your life to that, then you're special to me. You know what I mean? That I think that's it.
Yeah, we keep bringing him up, and I feel like it's whenever people bring up Cassavetes, I'm always like, oh, okay, that's some like film school 101 bullshit. But he is just the best with some of his thinking. And I
Yeah.
remember there's a part in his book or an interview that I saw that said that like actors are more important than doctors and lawyers.
Yes.
Because they are mapping out the human soul. This is something that's
Mm-hmm.
more ancient than this present thing that you're doing with surgery or at this law firm or whatever. And whatever, we need everyone that does everything for the world to exist. But I agree with that.
Yeah.
It's a braver and more worthy cause, at least for me, than me being a soldier or a politician or something, and it's a more spiritual, well, I don't know, I'm getting a little woo woo way too fast, but it is very much like a good way to live your life. It's a good way to grow your spirit and to be present with your kids and your fucking wife and your day and the Uber driver. And all of a sudden you're so much less out of your head.
Yes.
Because the externals you allow to play on you in this way that's not cerebral or sort of neurotic, rather, but more felt. It's more of a rhythm and a flow.
So my experience with seeing your feature Dogleg was not knowing anything about you, not knowing anything about this film, going to a theater to see it, sitting in the front row. And being, besides just the nature of the filmmaking and the unique structure it has that I appreciated, the beautiful look it has, the main thing that I'm wowed by is your performance. What I appreciate all the time with comedy, it has to be baked into reality, but it can't. I'm so picky. It can't have this sheen of performativeness unless it's somebody that is really performative, like Woody Allen or
Mel
you know what
Brooks.
I mean? Yeah. Then it's like it's just them and I love them. They could say any word and I'm laughing. You know those people.
Of course.
Where it's just them. But aside from that, baked in reality, not performative. So you're doing something else. It's like 150% integrated into the moment. It felt like. And it's culminated in that scene, but the behind the scenes scene where you start fighting, that's the culmination of what I'm talking about. But what I'm saying is that there's something about your dedication to characterization.
It means a lot that you would say that, Peter. I think that you kind of nailed it. Like it's that moment to moment work. You know what I mean? It's not me coming into that moment to specifically, okay, we'll think about that scene. There's a scene, we call it the blow up at the cruise scene, where the character that I play comes to a set and things go awry and he's kind of an asshole. I'm not coming into that scene necessarily with that much work to do or that much consideration outside of maybe the beats we need to remember because we're doing very long takes And I need to simplify the process for myself is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
I need to work moment to moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that what you're feeling in the audience is actually being felt on set. The camera is not going to lie. The camera is a laser for truth. And if we are giving ourselves over completely to this moment in front of the camera, then the hope is that the camera is a truth teller and picks up that stuff. So really making myself relaxed and understanding that the only thing that I need to be responsible for is letting these people bump up off of me, and taking the attention off of myself and placing it completely on everything around me, and finding areas that I want to kind of nudge things in as the guy directing the scene and playing the director in the scene. It's kind of it's a weird little thing that we created with that movie, and specifically that scene. But what it did allow for me to do, after a lot of work to prepare to get to that moment, was to relax and to work moment to moment, And then as far as comedy is concerned, like, I tend to agree with you. I think that there's actors like Martin Short or, Lucille Ball or something that are really like blown out, kind of over the top actors. And maybe there's times where I can play a character like that. But I think in the main, as far as the work that I'm making as a director, my co-writer who lives in New York, Michael Bible, and I both agree on some kind of common principles about comedy. And it's that there's nothing funnier than like self-seriousness.
Mm-hmm.
From caveman time to now, like a caveman is drawing some masterpiece on the wall with a piece of chalk, and a rock comes and hits him. Everybody's going to fucking laugh. A director in 2023 shows up to a set with like a plan in place, but he's doing a terrible job, executing that plan, and the confidence of the crew is starting to shift, but he's still considering himself like the next Spielberg. Like, that's funny to us,
Yeah.
So to not try and animate the comedy too much, or not even really look at it as comedy. We understand that principle, that setup is going for laughs, right? But if we can just kind of like use that peripherally and not be the focus,
right.
Not use that as the focus of what we're doing, then the hope is that the audience can come about their own relationship to the comedy of that scene or that movie.
There's moments in there that a lesser performer or a person who has a different approach to comedy would have realized, oh, this is a good moment for this zinger right here. That's a real good joke at this moment that because I'm a person, I shouldn't even say a lesser actor, a person who is really in the moment, but who just approaches comedy differently might find that there's a setup happening, and I'm going to say this, and that's going to be funny. And you didn't do that ever. And if you did, I wouldn't have enjoyed the scene much. I would have laughed in a kind of that's funny on paper kind of moment. And maybe some people would have laughed that I consider to be lesser comedy beings than me. And, and there's nothing wrong with kind of playing, I guess, to those people. But this is what I appreciate. It feels like you're on an elevated level of comedy. Now, I'm not expecting you to even agree with this, because that would be really pretentious of you. So just hear it from me. And just understand that this is what I'm thinking. Like, you didn't take the bait of delivering ever, and that's why it's funny, I think.
Thanks, and I appreciate that. What you don't know about me is I'm very pretentious, and I do agree with you. I am. I'm kidding. No, I think that I was thinking as you were saying that about my casting choices for Dogleg. I'll give an example. Do you remember the scene where the guy's carrying the mattress up the stairs and
Absolutely.
he kind of gets like kidnapped by these two women?
Yeah.
I had been kind of meeting with different stand-up comedians to try and cast that role. I wanted to find a comedian, a comedic actor. And I remember being pretty into a few people that I met with. And then like in person, I didn't feel that. Like I felt like what I liked was their kind of song and dance on the stage. But in the moment, like I didn't feel a spark, you know? And I think that it was because of what you're saying. Like they were kind of almost giving me a hint of how they would do it. And it was going to be very winky, like wink at the camera, hit the moment really big. And I remember going and getting a drink with a couple of friends after I met with one comedian. And Christopher Borgley was a new friend at that time. And he's the guy that ended up playing that role, walking, taking the mattress up the stairs, because he said to me, you don't need to cast a comedian. You need to cast an actor that understands comedy like me. And we won't overdo it. We won't overbake it. And he was right. Like he was able to come in and just play, moment to moment with those other actors and let the kind of scenario carry the comedy. He could just ride the wave of what we had written, which is, it's not even comedy. It's just, I mean, it is, but it's just more of a peculiar situation that he found himself in.
Right.
And if he could play it straight, then the comedy would kind of grow wings and fly. That was the idea.
Right.
Know?
And it's even more so in that scene because he definitely is the straight man in that scene. The girls are the comedy aspect of it, right? I mean, and he has to play off.
They're playing, but even those two actors, Courtney Peroso and Ella Smith,
amazing,
are very good at what they do, and they're not pushing it either. They're being wacky, but that's right. It's from this like pathos that they have as
and it's just baked characters. In. It's baked in. It's baked in. And that's what I appreciate about them too. Yeah.
And I want to say, like, I would like as an actor to be able to have opportunities to play different types of styles of comedy and drama. But it always is going to come back to what we're talking about, to bring it back to your original thing. Like, whatever the bit may be, your mother dying and you're crying at her bed, or you slip on a banana peel. Like, my thought is that if I'm working moment to moment and I'm here and I'm present and I'm concentrated on what's happening, then things will come up inside of me that I couldn't have pre-baked or pre-written, and that spontaneity will start to grow a relationship with someone like you who's in the audience. You have your own kind of conception of how this is working inside of you, and less of like, oh wow, what a smart scene that they wrote. I never want to be that kind of actor or director.
Yes. And that's particularly popular right now. The whole, this is really smart writing, like where you can see the writing and people are like, I mean, it's weird how I think that's going to be dated, it's going to be so dated soon. But I want to believe that because I'm an asshole, and I want to believe everything I think is going to come true. But I think
you're right though. Like in a sense, like you can watch back, not to get whatever, but like, before Stella Adler came back after she met with Stanislavski, the acting style in Hollywood was very different. And then she comes and Brando and all of that, like this introduction to a real kind of connection to a human condition was beginning to kind of take shape. And now you can watch. It doesn't matter if you're a film lover or not. If you're a human being, you can watch Brando on the waterfront in the back, of the car, and he's having the conversation, and you can just see something else is happening in him that's in that moment. It's in that time. That doesn't get dated.
Right.
What does get dated are these trends. And I agree with you. Like to have, the sort of thesis of your film be, wow, what a smart writer.
Right.
That will age very quickly.
Right.
That will spoil. And what doesn't spoil are these very foundational human truths that we as actors get to, explore.
Yes.
And so anyway, I think you are an asshole, Peter, but you might be right.
Even an asshole is right a couple times a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you just did another movie where you are just acting in it, and it's coming out. It looks really good. I might even go see that in the movie theater. I might actually pay to get a ticket to go see Dream Scenario. I might actually go out mainly because of Al Warren. But if you look at Nicolas Cage in this trailer, you're like, this harkens back to like adaptation. So tell me when this side of you that decided, okay, I want to go into this seriously now and have this woman's original idea about you hitting Hollywood actually come true 20 years after she's
Mm-hmm. It's something that's been dormant in me since I was a kid. As I was saying, I think that's just naturally, that's what I love. I love just doing bits and playing around. I love that. And yeah, so it was like a dormant thing in me that I'm an actor, and I wouldn't call myself an actor for many years. I was a director of actors, but I'm not an actor. And I will rehearse with the actors, and I'll insert myself, hopefully not too much, but I'll play with them. That was the joy of it. Not to make this like a long story, but the guy that I'm referring to, Christopher Borgley, who carries the mattress up the stairs, a few months after we filmed that, he said, "Hey, will you return the favor and act in this short film that I'm going to make? And it's called Former Cult Member Hears Music for the First Time." And I read the script and I really liked it. So I said, sure, I'll repay the favor. And on set that day, I didn't come with a massive amount of plans of how I was going to do it. I knew that I just wanted to be in the moment and relaxed. And that was such a good day. I remember leaving the set and text messages from Christopher and from some of the producers like, great job today. You did great work. And just feeling like, okay, like my day is done. For the first time in a long time, I felt like there wasn't this kind of cloud hanging over me of the work that was yet to be done on a film that I'm directing. Right. I'm just done.
Right.
There was something so healthy about that, I'll say. Kate Adams, who plays the girl in that film, who is the former cult member, is an incredible actor, and she trains constantly. And that film got picked up by Sundance, and we went to Sundance, and I remember having a drink with a few cast members and a few people that were there, and Kate said to me, like, Al, you might be a director, you might be a drummer, but at the core of who you are as your new friend, you are an actor. Wow. And you need to pay attention to that, and you need to work to create like a craft for yourself, and you should do that for the rest of your life. And I remember hearing that, and something inside of me started to perk itself up. Like, what if?
Wait, say her name. Say her name again.
Kate Adams.
Listen,
incredible actress.
Kate Adams. Yeah. If you're listening, that is a beautiful thing. Everybody needs that.
Yeah.
Everybody needs somebody who can see that in you, and can say that to you. Mm-hmm. And what a beautiful. I just wanted to.
Big shout outs to Kate Adams for that. I agree with you. And when you find those road signs that really seem to be pointing you in a direction where the sunlight is hitting the earth, you got to go there. So I did. She studied the Strasberg method, which I'm interested in. But that person that told me that she was an actor back in the day in New York studied Meisner. And because of her, I started to kind of read those books and follow actors that studied that. And that felt like a natural way of working, building it almost like a ballerina would. Like, you're not starting with scene studies. You're starting at the bar. You're just learning a plie. Like in Meisner, we were starting with repetition. How do I take the focus off of myself and put it on you? What does that do to my behavior without me having to think so cerebrally about how am I going to respond? Just like do it. I started studying with a guy who was Sanford Meisner's assistant for 30-something years named Bill Alderson. There were kind of like two central Meisner guys that carried the torch after he died. There was Bill Esper and Bill Alderson. Esper was on the East Coast. Right. Alderson was on the West Coast. I live on the West Coast. And I've been studying with him for years, and I think slowly over time, starting to relook at what that would look like. Again, like going back to my teenage years and getting signed to that agency as a young person and wanting to be a star. That died. I don't know where the winds will take me as an actor. I hope that I can do a lot of good work, but I know that there's something foundationally about me that matches up with this work as an actor. So I started following that path as much as possible. And I still, that's where I am now. You know, I always will direct and edit and write, but chiefly I want to act because it's a healthy way for me to live. It's a good way for me to be a dad. It's a good way for me to be a neighbor, a son, because it encourages me to be present. It encourages me to be here and to be like in my life, carrying those same principles. I'm working moment to moment in a conversation with someone. I'm not, you know, I feel more true and more pure that way. I'm closer to God in this way. The Nick Cage movie was directed by Christopher Borgley, who made former Cult member. And we made a lot of short films together that found audiences, and people started to look at, people didn't know that I was a director and an actor. And that felt really good to me. It felt like really refreshing to me that folks are being introduced to me as this is an actor. And for the first time, you know, maybe 5-6 years ago, that started to feel really good. And that's where I am now. So yeah, Chris wrote this script and sent it to Nicolas Cage, and Nick really loved it, and he loved our work in the short films. I remember great. Chris came over after he had met with Nick for the first time, and he was like, Nick talked about you a lot. And I was like kind of touched because I love Nick Cage, and the fact that Nick just knows me as an actor felt really not on an ego thing, but just on a roadmap thing. Like, you're heading in the right direction, man.
Right.
And so to be on set for Dream Scenario in Toronto and watch really great career actors like Nicolas Cage and Julianne Nicholson work in their various ways, it just felt like that's where I need to be. And so I hope you will buy a ticket to Dream Scenario. I'm very excited about people seeing it. I'm really encouraged by folks loving Nick so much in the movie, and I think it's well deserved, and it does harken back to performances that he's given in a film like Adaptation. It premiered at Toronto a few weeks back. And
how was that? Were you there?
You know what? Like, I've been touring Dogleg all summer, and I haven't been around my family. We booked a vacation during that week, and I didn't go.
Good for you.
Which was maybe a good thing too, because a lot of the cast weren't able to because of the strike and whatever. I'll be at the LA premiere in a few weeks, and I'll definitely be on the trail for it. But what I was going to say is, it's encouraging to me that I don't give a fuck about any of this shit really at the end of the day, but it is like a good sign, I think, that people are saying, wow, maybe Nick will get nominated for Best Actor for a performance like this. It just it encourages me that like the work is going to find an audience that like true moments.
Yes.
You can watch Nick doing this, and you can see him doing what I'm talking about. He's working moment to moment. He's there in this character, in this moment, in this scene, throughout the film, and it creates this kind of symphony of a performance that I feel like folks are ready to celebrate for him.
Now, Al, when I start talking about my favorite movies of the year, and I start talking about Dogleg, because everyone just wants to know what I think, and they will listen to me, obviously.
Yeah.
People are going to want to know how to see Dogleg, and it's unfortunate that the Dogleg tour just ended last week. You had a tour where you were literally like a band going around the country with an act. And the act is this incredible film called Dogleg, and you're playing in wonderful theaters all over the country. And this is a whole new kind of way to do this. Instead of hitting a festival circuit or which has its ups and downs about that kind of stuff. Here you are just like going into different places, making it an event, making it fun. You're just sitting there, afterwards, you're talking to people, you're meeting people. And that's what happened in New York when I saw it. But how can people see this now? How do we see this?
Well, first of all, thank you for saying that it's one of your favorite movies of the year. The plan for Dogleg is to be determined. I think that there are some options that are presenting themselves for streaming and for Blu-ray. The summer tour of Dogleg is over officially, but we will continue to show the movie later in the year in Europe and in other places. And the kind of thinking behind that, Peter, is like, right, we made this movie with our money over the course of 6 years. We were never in really a rush. We wanted to make the movie the best that it can be. And then when we felt like we were there, we wanted to take the most ownership of how we were bringing that to audiences. Yeah. And it harkens back to my touring days as a musician. I remember being, our band was asked to support bigger bands that were headlining shows, and we would tour with them. And I remember the value of playing in like Lincoln, Nebraska to a bunch of people that had never heard of us before. They were there for the band playing after us. And we would play a good show. And then we would set up at our merch table or at the bar with fans and connect with them, talk with them, have a drink with them. And then when we would come back on another tour, maybe a headlining tour in Lincoln, Nebraska, those friends would bring like 10 other friends.
Yep, there you go.
There's a value in just putting the work into going and exhibiting whatever it is that you're doing and then communing with those people. So with Dogleg, we played it 3 times in LA and then 3 times in New York. And people started talking about it a little bit online. And I started getting DMs from different programmers and people throughout the country that were like, when's it coming to Austin? When's it coming to Toronto? And I would just throw the ball back in their court. Like, when do you want it to? What theaters are you connected to?
Yeah.
How could we do this? This is the way that I want to do it. We can't rent theaters. We don't have money, but I'll do ticket splits and I'll get like a local celebrity or someone that has like an audience in that town to moderate a Q&A. And then we'll get other people that throw parties in that town and we'll collaborate with them to throw an after party. And I will come there and we'll do that.
Yeah.
And so we did that, rinse and repeat all summer. And I feel like it really worked. Wow. I feel like there's a cult kind of audience around Dogleg because of this process of touring the movie. I don't really know where you're going to be able to access the movie or when, but it will be soon. It will be in the next like 6 months, and it'll be probably on a streamer that if you're a movie cinephile fan, you've heard of and that you like. Okay. And it's not Peacock and it's not fucking some big like, thing. We're going to see to it all the way to the end that like the process that we started, where we are fully intentional about how we're bringing it to an audience, will continue. And I wish there was a way that you could say like, yeah, check it out on fucking Netflix right now, but there's not. But it is touching that you would say that it was one of the most impactful experiences that you had watching a movie this summer or this year. And I hope that it can continue with audiences watching it from the comfort of their home and not just in a theater.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that this is a very good way to do it, in that now people listening are like, okay, I can't just press play on this right now. That sucks. But sometimes it's amazing when you have to wait for something.
Yeah.
I mean, we know this is when we were kids, and now kids don't understand this so much. And you had to wait for movies and stuff like that, or you heard about this movie that's old and you couldn't see it right away, like this classic. And then you just keep hearing about it. And another person says, oh yeah, I got to find a way to see that. Yeah. And then when you do see it, it's amazing because it lives up to it, because it's good. And this brings me to my final point here. Somebody listening might be like, wow, this is a great way to distribute something and to do it. And I think that we have to really illustrate here that the way this is going to work is if you make something good. And I'm sorry, it has to be good first. You can't go and do this and expect it to be successful because you're doing it in a grassroots way if it's not good. Just spend time to make something good.
Mm-hmm.
And then do it like this, and then you'll be reaping the rewards of your hard work, right? I mean, am I being too harsh?
No, I think that, well, there's a couple of things that I'm thinking about as you say that. Like, every movie needs to be treated in a different way. Like, Dream Scenario is supported by A24, and it has like big festivals that are premiering it. And it doesn't need necessarily to have this kind of roadshow thing attached to it. You've got Nicolas Cage. They've got a whole system behind how that movie is going to work. So it's going to work because of that. But a movie like Dogleg doesn't have that. We don't have Nick Cage. We've got great actors. Maybe some of them you've seen in something before, maybe not. And so it worked for us. What I will say that I'll kind of match you on the assholeness a little bit is like, distribution models in America are boring and tired for a movie like Dogleg. I remember early on we got approached by a company and they said, for a movie that is the size of Dogleg, the best you're going to be able to do is have the movie play in 10 cities throughout the country during the same like 10 or 14 day window. And that's it.
That's it.
You know, I like, to me, that is so unappealing and unattractive. And I always will say this: music will forever be like 10 or 15 years ahead of film in the way that models of distribution and consumption work. Music is always going to be ahead of film. So why not shake the Etch-a-Sketch a little bit and say, look, that doesn't work for us. We're going to go and do something that's not been tested as much. We're going to tour this thing. We're going to take our time. And we're going to see where it lands us, because that feels better in my gut than going, right, okay, let's have it play in Austin for 10 days at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday. Nobody's going to fucking go or care.
Yeah.
And if they do go and care, it's going to be like two people that will have a very limited kind of need to be responsive to another audience member because nobody's there. I can't pretend that I know too much about distribution models and, you know, the statistics of how, you know, one movie does well for a company versus the other. But I can say that, like, you know, when you don't feel like something is right, don't do it. And that's been kind of the impetus behind the entire Dogleg theory. And I'm happy to hear that other movies that are probably around the same size and experience of making those movies like Dogleg are looking at the way that we're doing it and going, right, maybe we can try that too. I'm inspired by other people being inspired by us, you know.
Al Warren, thank you so much. Please come back on the show again.
Peter, I just want to say, man, like, I really love this podcast. I love what you're doing. I love the fact that, like, I'm a nobody. Nobody knows who I am. But on your podcast list, there's Juliette Binoche, and there's Isabelle Huppert, and there's all of these Titan actors. And I love this podcast, and I'm so honored that you would ask me to be on it, man. So thank you so much.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of The Gotham, formerly IFP. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.